Welcome to the Teaching Journeys podcast, hosted by Dave Roberts. Humanity possesses a unique skill, the ability to pass knowledge from one generation to the next. This podcast embraces that ability, offering learning opportunities and conversations with extraordinary guests. Dave aims to leave a positive mark on individuals around the world. So before you dive into today's episode, please share this podcast with your network, including friends, family, and colleagues. And please consider leaving a rating or review. Your support makes all the difference.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, and today it is my pleasure to have back as a return guest, Reverend Sheila B. Tillich. Sheila has been openly and deeply committed to a spiritual path since 1985. As a recovery metaphysician, Sheila guides individuals in awakening to and aligning with their true self, empowering them to live the purposeful life that they were divinely created for. Her healing practice facilitates a profound electromagnetic shift within the body, supporting transformation on physical, emotional, and spiritual levels. In February 2020, Sheila was called on by the Galactic Star Mothers to transmit messages of unconditional love, guidance, and remembrance to those seeking answers. She is also a certified hospice and palliative caregiver, an ordained metaphysical minister, and an experienced metaphysical practitioner, bringing compassion, integrity, and deep spiritual wisdom to all whom she serves. And Sheila, sometimes in all of this, do you have time to sleep?
Barely.
Do the Galactic Star Mothers at least give you some time to recharge?
Last night was interesting. I was up at 2:00 and they had me outside. And it's like, this is ridiculous. I've got to get back to sleep. And I did. They let me go back to sleep, so which is really good.
Well, that's good. And plus, you're refreshed for today's recording, which is always a good thing because we had a great first conversation. I think we enjoyed it so much we decided to do a part 2. And who knows, there might be a part 3 after this, depending on...
I think so. Something tells me there will be.
Yeah, I think so too. I think the Galactic Star Mother spirit, I think, they'll guide that for sure. And today, before we got on to record, we didn't really have a specific topic. And I kind of wanted to keep it kind of organic. And I know one of the things that struck me is I did see a recent video that you did on your YouTube channel about the Spring Equinox. And I thought with, coming out of what I would call the bleakness of winter and the very challenging winter that we had weather-wise and I think energetic-wise, seeing how, seeing what the Spring Equinox, what that means, what that signifies for us individually, as communities, how we can as individuals and community maximize the teachings and the energies of the Spring Equinox to co-create our reality, the reality that we want in conjunction with the universe. So kind of figured we'd go there and just see where the conversation takes us.
That sounds great. I love it.
All right, cool. Before we begin, for those who might not have tuned into the first episode, you just want to give just a brief background or to add some information in addition to the bio that people may not know about you.
So the short version is I was born hard of hearing. I was able to see and hear and talk to angels since I was a child. I never really stepped into actually my spiritual role until over 40, 41, almost 42 years ago. It has been a wonderful journey with all the obstacles and challenges, and it has made me who I am today, as qualified as a Galactic Ascension midwife, a Galactic grandmother midwife. And I say Galactic Ascension is because this is a time of change. We are ascending to a whole new level on planet Earth, and we are ascending, and it's all about the consciousness field and how you use it. And that's what my whole role is as a Galactic grandmother midwife, helping others.
Yeah, I think, that's a worthy cause for everybody. I think we should be committed to service regardless of the challenges, that we've experienced. And I don't think we need challenge to understand that it's important to be of service to our fellow man and fellow human beings. So I think, yeah, if we can be in service to each other, I think that lays the groundwork for inclusive and very compassionate communities if we make that a priority.
Exactly. And understanding what is happening now in the world, the old ways of always doing things, the old programming. And that's where it lines up with the spring equinox. As far as this spring, 2026, is a total change from the last spring. And the duality of the old, how we always did things, and now the change into the unity and the community of everyone joining together in this new way of living, new way of understanding. And it is about the consciousness, the energy field out there.
What do you see contributing to this shift in terms of the emphasis on community and really needing to change the way we've been doing things? What is the significance of that? Why do you think this is happening now?
It was prophesized, but also it is who we really are as star beings or spiritual beings or our soul. And a lot of people, understand the soul when we talk about the soul, and they usually equate it with religion, but it's so much more than religion. It is about who we are as divine beings in human form, living the classroom of earth in a human body, but we're really a spiritual being. So the difference now in 2026 is that the actual scientific evidence of the actual frequency of the earth, the connection between Mother Gaia, or how our electromagnetic field works, and the actual way the elements work in our life with the galactic, with the solar flares of the sun, and how it emanates with our physical bodies. And this spring is really a huge change. So much power coming in to our physical bodies to help us be in that new unity energy of working together. And many of us, because we have been doing this work, or it's the right time and divine time for us to do the work. And that's the key. It was prophesized that was going to happen. What we were taught was a different form of understanding, the duality of it. You have to do it this way or this is going to happen. Now it's so many new, infinite possibilities of co-creating. Just what you talked about, co-creating. What does that mean? It means you can rewrite the story, which you've always been told, into going with inside from the wisdom of your soul. The wisdom. Where does that wisdom come from? And the star mothers will always talk about the DNA. We'll always talk about the multidimensional frequency. What is that? That is the higher knowing. That is the intuition or the oversoul. People sometimes call it, my higher source, my soul, identity, me being a star being, all those words is like, what does that mean? What does that mean? It means that we are more than our physical bodies. And Earth has always been one way. And now things have changed into a different way. And for us to grow with it, to get excited about it and have the joy. And it's all in the field, how you think and how you act and how you connect with other people. And it's the unity where us like-minded, and we're all like-minded, we choose to be. It's all about choice, because that's us as being humans. And we've never had that choice taken away from us. We feel like we have, because we're still thinking in the old ways of learning and programs.
Mm-hmm.
And so this spring equinox was beyond comprehension to some people, because they're still in the old and the fear factor. And then it is profound for many of us who are awakened, who see the impact, the changes that are happening in the world, mostly inside ourselves. I have seen such a change inside me and my abilities to communicate with others and especially how the star mothers communicate with me. So many good changes are happening, and it's going to continue. And it is galactically aligned. It's about astrology. It's about the physics of the universe and how it all works scientifically in our bodies.
Mhm.
And that is the beautiful information that's coming through now. And that's why we're here as educators and sharing who we really are, getting out of the fear factor and coming forward. And that's the unity of us all. The unity is that we are divine.
I heard you say too that the fear factor, and I also heard you say it's a lot of it is due to the old program. And I've had other guests on the program, and I have talked about how the messages that we get either growing up or in adulthood, it's kind of like it's a narrative that we kind of, without thinking, our behavior responds to that narrative. And so, how do we break out of that? How do we maximize the power that the spring equinox is going to unleash and make us aware of? How do we maximize that so that the body mind connection is whole and that we're overcoming the negative messages that we've automatically subscribed to for years?
Right. Well, I always try to explain to people it is your thoughts as soon as you wake up and before you wake up. All right. What you do put out there is what you're going to get back. So if you change the way you look at life, wake up in the morning and be thankful. First 30 seconds, as soon as you wake up, even before you, or put your feet on the ground, say them gratitude and start thanking and being grateful. And a lot of people say, I don't have anything to be grateful for. Well, you're alive. All right. Thank you, Lord or God or Spirit, whoever, I had another day. So start with your thoughts. And that's the most important, I think, is your thoughts. And then affirmations. Great day today. I can't wait. I'm excited about having that day. And then, have a routine. For my routine is I get up in the morning. I'm grateful. I put my joy out there. I am alive to go forward. And that's what spring is about new beginnings and everything's new and rebirthing. And so I put my feet on the ground, say my gratitude, appreciation. Then I go put the coffee on. Then I go pee. Then I go outside. I actually go outside and barefoot all. And yes, when the snow was really, really high, I did wear boots. For the most part, I am barefoot. And I connect with Mother Gaia because that's the frequency. And then I breathe in, and it's about the breath, clearing all that stuff. And it's so important when you use the elements to help you, but it's simple. It don't cost anything, but it is a pattern. It is something that it's a choice you have to make. And then there's other ways of staying that frequency when you get ungrounded or negative thought comes into your life or you have a situation in your life. So my biggest tool that I teach and I do myself is saying the gratitude and thankfulness is because we are learning that things are evolving. Whether we like it or not, it's going to evolve. And it's always an inside job. It begins with you first. That's what we talked a lot about in the last interview, about putting the mask on and changing and stuff. It's the same with this spring. It is like, look at it with beautiful new possibilities. Same with every time I go outside, I see a new bud and I see things budding and opening. That's the same with you. And when you have that attitude of gratitude, right? Thankfulness. And it can be just the little things, I'm glad I can get up and walk, and think of those that are less fortunate of you. And a lot of people don't want to do that. And that's okay. That's your choice. But there are so many beautiful things going forward that you can do. And it doesn't cost you anything. Will change your life, but you got to be committed. You got to do the work.
Yeah, and I think from what you described in terms of the affirmations, getting outside and walking barefoot, so you're connected to Mother Gaia and or Mother Earth, and it's his needs to be repetition. You need to kind of like just build that into your behavioral repertoire. But I think it's also a great way of setting intention for the spring in terms of what you want to have to change.
It's intention. That's where the choice comes in. You have the choice to set the intention to do different. And then the intention, a lot of people understand intention, and then intuition goes with it. Intention and intuition, what does that mean? That's your spiritual component, your God source within you.
Yeah.
We talk about Mother Gaia or Mother Earth, planet Earth. What does that mean? And Gaia or Terra is another word that they used years and years ago of the connection with that frequency. And you are a human body living in that frequency on Mother Earth. And her power is so powerful now that just like what we were talking about, Mercury retrograde, that's electrical stuff and everything that's happening. There's a reason for that. There's a reason.
And I think, Sheila, with nature has a spirit all of its own. And I think nature reacts to the negative energies there's a lot of it in the world right now for a lot of different reasons. Earth and nature just reflects that negativity in terms of, we take a look at the weather events, we take a look at everything. It's Mother Nature's way of saying, hey, we need to do things differently.
And when you reflect upon that, it's just like a child. A child hasn't gone through a lot of the experiences, and they normally, are filled with joy and happiness, and they look at things differently. And I think that's where we need to look at things differently from a new perspective. And when you look at the spring, you can look at the new birthing, but you can look at yourself as a child. What made me happy as a child? But just the little things, just like the budding on the trees, makes me smile. Or I walk outside and I hear the birds. And even without my hearing aids, I can hear the birds. When I put my hearing aids on, it's like, oh, I can really hear the birds, which is great. And it just reminds me when I first got sober, when I stopped medicating with alcohol and people, places, and things, and I was able to just sit in the present moment and feel it. And because I couldn't feel for many years. And that's also part of where I came from and on my journey. And that's why I can relate a lot to people who are in that, I don't remember my childhood. I don't remember that. So that's why you make it in bite-sized pieces, like that elephant, little pieces. Same with being grateful. Put the intention of being grateful out there by saying the positive affirmations or positive prayers. If you want to call them prayers, call them prayers.
Yeah, so whatever verbiage you're comfortable with to integrate the concepts. And, it's the same with death. I try to work with people in terms of how they conceive death. I may look at it as transitioned from the physical world to spiritual world, but somebody may look at it as passed away. Somebody may look at it as dying. In Native American culture, I think it's walking on. So, you work with that verbiage. And if individuals are kind of open to that, then you can suggest other perspectives that help them grasp the reality of death, depending on where they're at. The other thing you mentioned about the ability to feel, and I think we need to be able to feel, even if we're at a point where we've come to a stage of acceptance with the challenges or the event that contributed to those challenges. I think for us to be able to experience the negativity, some feelings, I think can be a gift to us because it's always going to have something to teach us. And if we set those intentions through specific activities that we do every day to, we're going to have, the coping skill arsenal to be able to deal with any negativity that comes up and begin to look at it as an opportunity to learn more about ourselves and about our fellow human beings.
Exactly. And I like using that too when I'm out in the public because I am so sensitive and I can feel energy the way I can, but you can see in other people's lives how it's affecting them. And how simple it is to be able to change the energy around. When you're in the store and you have a mother that's yelling and screaming at the kid, and the kid is just, ranting and raving or whatever, it's like you can send that energy through heart math, which we talked about that before, is that you have the ability to change the situation. Just breathe it in and send the frequency of love out, to help the situation. Now, as the world is changing, you have the power to do something about it in your life if you choose. You choose.
Yeah, and we do have a choice. I mean, as human beings, we have free will. The soul has free will. So, we can choose to do whatever it is to empower ourselves, or we can choose to do whatever we need to do to continue to disempower ourselves. It's a choice.
Absolutely.
You mentioned specific activities such as affirmations and connecting with Mother Gaia. Are there any other specific rituals or activities that individuals can engage in to honor the changing season, from winter to spring?
First thing is to stay around positive people. Turn off mainstream media. Make choices of what you listen to and the people that you're around. And it's people are, they stay in the same element that they're used to. And when they come across somebody that doesn't play in that element, they kind of get curious. So you can actually, just by your own behavior, you can change the energy. You can change. And that's about being mindful. When we talk about mind, body, and spirit and how it affects you, that's about being in the present moment and take those deep breaths, and take those 10 seconds before you respond, so that your physical body can start to get a little bit more energy and you can start feeling that power coming through. But we, each and every single one of us, have a role to play in our lives, but also everything else around us. And if we take the time to, what can I do? What can I do? And the biggest clue is to go inside and ask and then listen. That's what I said. I call that my SIP program. And I give credit to who I learned that from one of my mentors, Suzanne Giesman, years and years ago, about, she calls it sit in prayer. And what Spirit has me talk about is sit in presence. So you can, if you're unhappy or a situation that really gets you in fear or anger or any of those emotions that come out, and those are good. Emotions are good because it kind of shows you things about yourself. And so flip around and say, okay, I feel angry or I feel, resentful or whatever. Then go someplace where you can be alone and sit in it. Why? Why do I feel angry? Why do I feel, fearful? And then just do the breathing. So the breathing by sitting in the present, and I say 3 minutes, and it's 3 minutes because you need to get the actual physical body, the cerebral fluid, to be able to have time to go up your body and to be able to expand upon that relaxation response in the brain. And then when you do that, it starts to relax your heart. And then you can ask the question, why am I angry? And then listen. And you can set the timer for 3 minutes then, and then start asking the questions and then listen. It's about training. It's about the patterns, about wanting to do different. So what I always say, and what I'm sharing with your audience, is that you can sit in the present moment. And it just takes 5 minutes and, get yourself centered, do the breathing, 3 different breaths, slowly and deeply and out. And then you get in your own rhythm. You don't have to have it, hold it for 5 or 6 minutes or seconds. But the key is you're setting the intention to do something about it. And then after you get you relaxed, then set the clock for 3 minutes. Or just, look at the clock or whatever. And then ask the question and then listen. And as you do this, you can do this as many times during the day.
Yep.
Even if you're at work, you can go into the bathroom, just take a sip break, 5 minutes. I'll be back in a few minutes. And that's exactly how heart math works. When you connect with the heart, with emotions, with your thoughts, by bringing appreciation and the happy thoughts to you, then you can change the chemistry in your body. And that's the same with in the spring. Why do we love it? We smell the air, we can see the buds blossoming, we get excited like a kid, we discover new things. Same with if you do the SIP, if you've had a situation at work that you need to have time out or whatever, or something triggers you, you can do that. So it's an easy way of changing every day if you choose.
Yeah, and the breath work by itself can be very powerful. And I've done breath work where I've taken 4 breaths in, 4 breaths out, or you can do box breathing, 4, 4, 4, 4.
Box, yeah.
When I do it for 2 or 3 minutes, I can feel my whole nervous system just calm down. The
Yeah.
parasympathetic nervous system, and I just feel just so much more, calmer, more in alignment, more aware. And I can tell days that I'm off when I don't do that, when I don't do the breathing or take some time for myself. Those are the days that I tend to be the most off.
Exactly, exactly. The Spring Equinox and some other transmissions that they've had me done lately is about helping you understand your crystalline structure of your body. What is actually happening physically to your body with this energy that's here now? The elements that you live in, your air, of course, the breathing, also the food, and the heat and the water, everything is part of this energy that's changing. And as those solar flares that are coming in now, they're changing the frequency, which is going into your physical body through the air, through the water, through the food. And they are actually changing your physical body from a carbon-based into a structure of a crystalline base, which is a higher consciousness frequency. That is stored in the mitochondria. Well, think about that. It's your nervous system. It's your minerals in your bones. It is your cardiovascular. It's all the stuff in heart math, but also with the breathing that's been taught over the years. This unity energy that we have now in 2026 going on, it is astrological. It's also the frequency in the earth with the elements. And then it is allowing your spiritual connection to be stronger, meaning your intuition, your knowing, your sensing. It's all about what you think is what you project out. And there's so many wonderful leaders, pioneers, for the last 20, 30, 40 years. I've, been on this realm, really all that, Dr. Dwyer, Wayne Dyer, of course, Louise Hayes, and there's so many more, Brian Wise, and all these other things where we've evolved from. We've taken those tools and we evolved. Now let's bring it up a little higher, and learn new things and continue evolving.
Mhm.
What are the new things? Just like the work that you do in the mental health and also recovery and also death and dying is exactly what I do too, in my own way. And so that's how we can relate. And when we're out there in society and we don't know how to relate to things with people, you just go into your heart, what, makes you happy. Do the simple things, easy things, and then start to see the blossoming in your own life. In other words, the changes in your own life, what is happening. And that's the spiritual connection. That's what's happening. And that's the crystalline changes in your mitochondria, in your cells. So they're powerhouse energy cells. And that is where they correlate with your nervous system and your sympathetic and the parasympathetic and how your body is functioning. So you got the physical and the mental and the spiritual part, mind, body, and soul. So it's wonderful. It's exciting.
Yeah, it's a dynamic framework to which we can look at growth. They're all interconnected. What we store in our body, if it's negative energy, that's going to affect everything else. It's going to project what we put out there. It's going to project how we see ourselves. It's going to, I think, prevent us from looking at how we are similar as opposed to how we are different. And I think all of that aligns. And I think anything that we can do to change those energy rhythms so that we're in alignment with nature, we're in alignment with our community, I would think the spring would be a good time to be able to begin to set those intentions and do that.
Exactly. It's wonderful. It never stops amazing me. And that is, the projection. What you project out is what you're going to get back. So if I project out the amazement, the wowing, and then also, of course, these days with things changing in our cellular structure, our body has these physical symptoms that happen, with the headaches or the stomach aches or the depression or not sleeping in the middle of the night. And then waking up and say, oh, what can I do? Instead of staying there in bed and just, trying to, count sheep and they're not coming, get up, do something just to distract you and then go back, set the intention. I'm going back to sleep now. Thank you, that worry, put it on the back burner. Yeah.
Yeah. And, I'm thinking sometimes we wake up in the middle of the night. I mean, 3 o'clock to me is a significant time to be awoken. I think it's the time that spirit is saying, okay, we need to spend some time together.
The veil.
You need to get into some deep reflection. You need to go within. And, what a lot of people don't understand is that everything they need to know is inside of them already. If they just take the time, sit in the quiet, trust their inner voice, they're going to get all the answers that they need. And I said this, and we talked about, the event in my life that was my daughter Janine's transition that got me to take a look at everything. And I would go through the what if questions, or what if I did this? Why did this have to happen to me? And then I got to a point where I realized that the only answer I was going to be able to accept would be somebody from the universe, whether it was God or one of his designated angels, to come down and say to me, Dave, we made a mistake. We're going to give you your life back. Once I knew that wasn't going to happen, I stopped asking the questions. I embraced the silence, and I got all the answers that I needed in terms of what I needed to do moving forward. Now, it was a process moving forward, as I think there is with any type of change, as far as cyclical change. I mean, I bet you a lot of people you've been talking about this new transition where it's going to be about community, where it's going to be about love, and you and other astrologers and other intuitives have talked about this. And people will ask, well, why is it taking so doggone long for this to happen? So why is this taking so doggone long for this to happen in some people's eyes? What is your take on that?
Well, it had to be the right time frame. And when you really take a look at the last 100 years or the last 200 years, how fast everything is changing from a time frame. And astrologically and scientifically, there's evidence that the earth is changing and the actual universe is changing and how it is responding to us. So it's no coincidence. And a lot of people don't want to look at the past, how it was before. And we've seen it. We've seen history change and how profound it has been. And so helping other ones, especially there's many people that are stuck in the fear and they don't want to look at it and they want to automatically respond negatively about it and or complain about the young ones or that's not how I did it when I was growing up. And so those are the triggers. Those are the things that need to be kind of changed if they choose. And going forward, scientifically, there's a lot of evidence and everything is coming out now. And it had to be the planet had to be at the right time to have this happen. If it happened, 75 years ago or, World War II, World War III, it wasn't time yet. And what has happened over last, what's going on now in the world now, with the situation that's going on from over in the Eastern and the Western and everything that's happening, it's a continuation, but it's also, all right, let's change that. So instead of doing the old all the time, let's do different.
Yep.
And just like the earth is different now, how we respond to it differently. So taking the time to use your wisdom, use your thoughts, and look at your own life. How's it working for you? As Dr. Phil would always say, how's that working for you? And it's not, And the same with people that get into recovery or change, it goes a whole different direction. I'm not happy, that you gotta take responsibility for it. But there's also wonderful tools that we have now that we didn't have before. And so I know I'm going all over the place, but think about the wisdom within, who you really are as a divine being, as a soul. There's more to us than our meat suits, the 3D world. And what am I here for? Where do we come from? That's exactly what I asked when I was a child. I didn't know, but my soul knew. So this shift of consciousness or the shift in the energy is happening so quickly that you can't deny it.
Yeah.
And that's where it's important for us to make the difference, to be the catalyst.
And I think that's where intention, that's where everything we've talked about earlier comes into play. If you know that there's going to be a shift in consciousness, a shift in how we operate individually and as communities, if you know that, you do your part to advance that directive, to advance that transition. You don't worry about how long it's going to take. You just do your part to make sure that you are treating everybody around you with those qualities that we are going to need to make the world a more inclusive place, a more tolerant place, where it's about community and it's not about individual achievement. But we have to do that one interaction at a time. And I think also, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's also about planetary alignments. Certain planets have to come into alignment as well. And it takes, each one of those takes a different number of years for that to occur, which I think also may contribute to why is it taking so long?
Yeah. As I said before, the older I get, the wiser my parents become. It's the wisdom that they have because they've lived it, even though we didn't want to listen to it at the time. Now we understand it. But also in the earth, the scientific evidence that it has to do with physics, astrology, the planets lining up, the connection, and the magnetic field in the earth. And many of us understand the harmonic convergence and harmonic concordance. And what started happening in the scientific realm with the energy inside the earth. And it showed where the planets started lining up to be able to help us with this. And the magnetic field started to change when, years ago, when the whales started beaching and we had to change the compass on the runways at the airports. That's, it was slowly happening. And then the precession of the equinox was a 36-year time period, was scientifically showed that as the astrology lined up, it was physically connecting to our physical bodies. And that is where the crystalline change started to happen within us, whether we started waking up, we started doing different. And remember, I started this in 85, and the harmonic convergence was in 1987. And the concordance was in 89. And then in 94, when those planets started coming together and started changing the frequency, the 36-year precession of the equinox started. And that's from 94 all the way to 2030. And then the halfway point was 2012, which is the Mayan calendar. And that's when the planets were in direct line, that with this wobble of the earth that was changing. However, if you look back on your life since 2012, what's happened since 2012? That's the biggest key right there. And when I teach my classes, whether it's integrated energy therapy with the DNA with the 12 strands, or whether it's unity field, which is the 24 spiritual quantum energy that's here now, I always bring it to where are we now? Where can you see the changes in your own life? And see, it wasn't, it's not really so slow. Is that your physical body needed the time to get to where you are now, to hold that energy. Because if you had it all at once, you would burn up. We are human bodies, and however, it's our soul. Where do we come from? And as a galactic grandmother, I understand that the soul never dies. The physical body does. And that's where a lot of the discoveries with past lives regression and all these things that affect our lives now, and that's part of the evolution of us getting to where we are now. Now we're at a point where this quantum energy or this higher consciousness or your higher soul, whatever you want to call it, Jesus, whatever you want to call it. And it's all about love, and it's about the higher frequency. And in 2012, there was polarization with the actual earth frequency and the polarization in our physical bodies, the electromagnetic field in our bodies. Just like in death. When you see a person that's transitioned, all right, you can tell there's no life in there. There's no soul. It's just a shell. But there's more to it because you feel it. Just like I feel my loved ones with me. I can communicate with them. Just like I'm sure you feel your daughter. And you've changed so much since then. But you needed to go through that to be able to have the wisdom. And since 2012, those polarization were negative and positive. So when you think about the old energy, the old programs and the way you were feeling things and not feeling things, then it kind of helps you understand, okay, Yeah, I am a magnetic being. I do, I'm happy and I'm sad. And then from 12 to 19, there was 12 sets of energy portals, which were consciousness grids. One was negative, one was positive. And as those portals started opening from 2012 through 2019, the world was changing. All these things were happening. And we slowly started seeing them. But then all of a sudden, boom, fast, 2020 with COVID. But that just didn't happen. That had been happening and it had been growing. So you look at the duality part. Duality meaning the old programming or the old ways of always doing things. How do you live life? You get married, you have a family, go yada, yada. And it's like, well, I'm not happy. I was like, okay, then you need to do something about it.
Yeah.
It's slow, but then it's really fast. It's fast now because everything is lined up just right. And our helpers are there. God is there. Our spiritual connection is there if we choose.
Yeah.
What is your intention?
We're all different, so you factor in individual differences. It may take individuals may be able to maximize the energies from the transitions that we're seeing quicker than others. So again, it all depends on how we grow separately as well too, and how fast that growth process looks for everybody. But I think you're right. I think as long as we can see how that affects us, and then to see how those changes we are undergoing can help in terms of us being of service to others, and again, just making some pockets of love and compassion in a world that's right now very divided on a lot of levels. So
Absolutely. Absolutely. And compassion can be done in so many different ways. As I said, just like going into a store and seeing a kid crying and just, sending love and compassion out. That's compassion. Compassion in action.
Yeah.
Or take care of your neighbor, or just doing something nicely and not expecting anything in return.
Yeah.
Just because.
Yeah, because I think if we talk about altruism, and I think true altruism is when you do something without expecting anything in return. If you're expecting something in return, I don't believe that's true altruism. So it's just you do something, make somebody's life happy, and don't expect anything in return. I have a couple of funeral directors that come into my class every year. They've done this for 7 or 8 years. And so what I do is I give each funeral home a donation to help a family in need. And I tell the funeral directors, they don't need to know who I am. It's an
Exactly.
anonymous donor. I want to do this. I want to do this to help a family because of my own circumstances, because I had a lot of individuals helping us during our daughter's illness and after she transitioned. And I said, I want to be able to give back and do this. So just keep me anonymous. They don't need to know who I am.
And it's really about who you are as a soul. Why do you do that? And a lot of people say, well, why does bad things happen to good people? And that is the old mentality thinking. And think of it, thank God. And as an alcoholic in recovery or that choose not to drink, I don't identify as being an alcoholic. It's a label. And I'm so much more than that. But it's like, I choose to look at things differently than I did before.
Mm-hmm.
And when you choose differently, then you can do differently. And then you can see other possibilities and co-create, meaning or create a new storyline, a new story, a new future. And people say, well, why do I have to co-create with anybody? Why can't I do it myself? Well, you can.
Mm-hmm.
But it's so much easier when you can be of service and see it and then want to be part of it.
Yep.
Instead of just I'll do it myself. That's like, I'll take care of myself. And it's the power inside that you have. It's always about the power inside and the connection. Where do we come from? Why are we here?
Yeah. And once we figure out why we're here, what do we want to do with that knowledge?
Bingo. And, you talk about altruism, and I also want to talk about alchemy. There's different ways of looking at alchemizing stuff. Alchemy, what it means, and the same as ascension. What does it mean, ascension? A lot of people think ascension, they think of dying. It's like, oh, I don't want to die right now. But that's their program, what they believe. So if you look at it, it's like, okay, look at your life differently now. What do you want to change? and death, especially for us that have experienced a death, we see how precious life is.
Mhm.
What is really important.
I think anybody that takes a death, dying, and bereavement class, it isn't just so much, it is about death, but it's about understanding that death is going to be a part of our being and understanding what's important in life as a result of that knowledge. So,
The story about my brother that passed in 2019, we were very, very close, and his soul, communicates with me all the time. But the ones that have left us, the reason why they were in our lives in the first place, and also understanding that every lifetime that we have, we learn something.
Yep.
And we've also carried the wounds too, if we choose.
Mm.
So stay within the energy of how can I go forward? How can I forward in a light sense, meaning a higher frequency that you can see instead of underlining darkness, those things that I don't like about myself. Bring it to the light. Bring it to light and show it to other people, is because you are a human being and you have faults, and you make mistakes every day. It's okay. Laugh at yourself. I laugh at myself all the time, especially with my hearing. It's all right. I can laugh at myself.
Yeah.
You can not do what you did before.
Yeah.
And that you're just as human as anybody else, and don't put anybody on a pedestal.
Yeah.
That's another thing.
I don't think anybody comes in to the human experience to do it perfectly, but yet a lot of times we'll get those messages that we have to be perfect, and then it causes a lot of conflict. But no, we didn't come into this world to live a perfect experience. We came into this life to learn, and that's to learn from everything, and to find that balance between lightness and darkness, and just find our genuine selves in the process, and find our own humanity in the process.
Exactly. And that our love never dies.
No.
Never, never. And take the good parts of it and use that and move forward with whatever your decisions are, whatever you want to achieve. And then as you change that, your frequency inside your body changes.
Yep.
And then that connects with everybody. That's the unity part. That's when you hear about collective, what does that mean? People that are seeing the changes, and many want to change themselves. And when you put that intention out there, want to change yourself, that's where the spiritual part comes into play. And we realize that we're not alone. We're never alone. Our loved ones are always with us. And, our ancestors, our genetic lines, all those wounds from the past, the clearing of the generational curses, or whatever you want to call them. Generational healing is very, very important to understand that they did the best they could with what they had. We have the opportunity to shift the future, and especially the young ones, because they're so different now. They come in with a different frequency, and that's because of the scientific evidence with all those planets lining up and the duality and stuff like that. And so if you sit back and look at the bigger picture, always look at the bigger picture. And what I always say, in my classes and people that I mentor with, is like, how can I help you?
Mm-hmm.
And they say, well, I want this, this, and this. I said, okay, so let's start at the beginning. Oh, no, I don't want to start at the beginning. We've got to start somewhere.
Yeah.
And then if you unravel those pieces, then you can put the pieces back together again. And that's exactly what's happening with planet Earth. Is that all those old things that didn't work is now unraveling, and people don't know how to, put Humpty Dumpty back together again. They look at people as that, well, this one did that and that one did that. It's like, okay, I'm not perfect. Nobody else. I don't like that either. But I also can see the good part in a person.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when the pieces unravel, we put them back together, the pieces are going to fit differently, but it's
Absolutely.
going to reflect the life that we need to live now in order to re-engage fully.
Exactly. I, years ago, I did stained glass. I made a stained glass window and stuff. And some of my pieces broke, but those pieces all can be put back together again in a
Mhm.
different transformation.
Yeah.
And it's the same with us.
Yeah, absolutely. Sheila, I want to ask you a couple of more questions before
Sure.
we conclude our time. We could probably go on for another 2 hours, but I have a feeling we're going to have to do this again at some point. So
That's what I said. We're going to do a third.
I do believe we're going to have the Holy Trinity, the three. We're going to have to do a third to complete that. So
Exactly.
Sheila, one of my last questions for you though is you've given us a lot of great stuff about how to maximize the energy of this spring equinox, what it means about this new transition in our evolution as a society and as a world. But if there's one ultimate takeaway, that's a takeaway specific to maximizing those energies for the spring equinox, what would that be?
Look at the good things that are happening. Stay in the positive. And know that you have the power within. And you're not alone. And you're very, very loved. Very loved. The spring equinox is about love. It's about new beginnings. And it's about awesome changes that are ahead. And that's where you get excited. Get excited.
You know, whenever I see a robin I know is in a lot of circles is significant because it signifies opportunities for growth. I saw this, very well-fed robin sitting on the rail of my deck, and it was almost as if he was looking at me. And so I said, yeah, Robin, I got the message. It's an opportunity for me to continue to grow. We're going to grow and look for those opportunities for as long as we live in this incarnation of ourselves. As long as we live in the physical world, we're going to continue to look for opportunities to grow. Sheila, if people want to get in touch with you, subscribe. I know you have a YouTube channel. What's the best way for them to do that?
Go to my website. And I recently launched a new website, easier to navigate, and they can do a clarity call with me and we can talk about how I can help them and what are their needs. It's all about individual needs. And I also mentor. So I do all that.
I will make sure your contact information, including the link to your website, gets in the episode notes before we go live. Sheila, as always, thanks for spending time with me. Thanks for another great conversation. I know our listeners are going to be impacted by what you've had to share, and I look forward to doing this again soon.
Same here, Dave. Thank you very much for having me. Namaste.
Namaste.
Yeah, namaste.
Namaste. And with that, that's a wrap on another episode of the Teaching Journeys podcast. I'm your host, Dave Roberts, wishing you peace.